Jay, is your microphone on?
Good morning. Good morning and welcome to First Unitarian Universalist Church of Nashville. My name is Jay Tiefenbrunn. My pronouns are she, hers, and I am very pleased to be your Director of Music Ministries. It's my pleasure to welcome you to online worship. Our collaborative pianist this morning is Holling Smith-Bourne. If you're watching live, buttons will appear that will bring you to our website. And if you're watching via YouTube or Facebook, visit firstuunash.org and click on the With You Worship Portal button for all the information you need to participate in today's worship, including the order of service, joys and concerns, and a link to our offering. Our guest speaker today is the Reverend Dr. Michelle Pederson. She is a spiritual director and a community minister affiliated with the Greater Nashville UU congregation, and she served as our intern in 2014 and 2015. Let us welcome her to our worship this morning. Please join singers from the First UU Choir in singing our opening song, number 188, Come, Come, Whoever You Are, lyrics attributed to Rumi, and we also use the ostinato. Join us.
Though you've broken your vows 1,000 times, 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 though you've broken your vows, come yet again, come yet again, come yet again, come.
I invite you now to take a breath, connect into your heart space, and reach out to your neighbors worshiping online with us. Won't you say hello in the chat and let us know you're here?
Our chalice lighting for this morning was written by Maureen Killoran. As the kindling of this chalice causes the community, let there be light. As the flame of this chalice reminds us of our values, let there be light. As the glow of this chalice encourages us to hope, let there be light.
River Call by Manish Mishra Marzetti. Between rocking the boat and sitting down, between stirring things up and peaceably going along, we find ourselves here in community, each called from many different journeys, many different life paths onto the river road. Some are here because the rocking of the boat has been too much tumult, too much uncertainty, too much pain. Some are here with questions about where the boat is going, how best to steer it, where the journey ends. Others are here as lovers of the journey, lovers of life itself, here in front, beside, behind, each a passenger, each a captain, doing the best we can. Rest here in your boat with me, the river calls. Listen to how I flow. The sound of life coursing all around you. Let the current hold you. Let the current guide you. The river that gently flows through your soul whispers, "Come, let us worship."
Good morning. My name is Denise Gouch, and I am your assistant minister. And this morning, I get to tell the story. I have a story this morning that's based on real life. It's about Jane Goodall, who was an important scientist, still is an important scientist, but it's about her when she was young. When she was very young, living in England, her favorite place to be was always out in the garden, as she says. She would climb trees and look at the plants and watch the animals around her. And that was just the best, always. When she got a little bit older, she learned how to read, and she read lots and lots of stories about Africa. And she dreamed then about going to visit Africa and living there with the animals. But she was, of course, still very young, probably 8 or 10 years old. So she had to wait for that dream. Meanwhile, she did dream lots of nights. She had vivid dreams about living in Africa, sleeping under the stars and being surrounded by animals and interacting with them. So as she got older, she managed somehow to meet someone named Louis Leakey, who was studying human beings. And long ago, prehistoric, we used to call them human beings. And Louis Leakey thought that if he could find someone to go and live with chimpanzees in Africa, Just watch them and observe them, we might learn more about human beings. And he and Jane met, and she ended up going as a job, one of her first jobs, being hired by Louis Leakey to go to Gombe in Tanzania to observe chimpanzees. She says being there was like her dreams come true. She would spend all day long, from early in the morning when the sun came up until after the sun had gone down, wandering around the woods alone, just looking for the chimpanzees and just stopping and observing them. Now, she found that they were very shy and they would run away if she got anywhere close to them. So she would take her binoculars and she would sit on a hilltop or climb a tree and just be very still and watch them. And that was good. That was really interesting for a while. But then the days went on, the weeks passed, the months started piling up. 5 months she had been at Gombe, and she still hadn't had any very close observations of the chimpanzees. Mostly she saw them running away from her. And she was starting to worry about how long she would have to wait. And then she started realizing that there was one chimpanzee in particular. He had white hair on his chin, so it was different from what any of the other chimps looked like. So she knew it was the same chimpanzee who seemed a little less afraid of her. And this chimp would come a little closer to her and would let her stay a little closer and watch. And gradually, her waiting patiently won the day, and they would start coming closer and closer. And she was able to see them sometimes with each other and just observe, just sit quietly, maybe in a tree or behind a bush, and watch them as they interacted with each other. And she thought, wow, look at this. They have relationships with each other. They feel feelings like we do, just like human beings. This is really, really kind of unusual. And then she saw some things that were very interesting to other scientists all over the world. She saw chimpanzees use rocks and sticks and branches as tools to gather food, to break open nutshells, to fish things out of narrow openings, yummy things like ants. And at this time, this was a long time ago, about 60 years ago, we used to think that animals didn't use tools, not ever. And she said, hey, folks, I'm seeing animals use tools. And this was groundbreaking. And because she saw this, there started to be more money for a film project, which allowed her to stay even longer and develop even a closer observation of the chimps. She actually started interacting with them more. They shared some food, and that caused some problems because sometimes the chimps would come into camp and take things like pillowcases. They like to chew on cloth, and cardboard boxes were yummy to chew on apparently too, and the bananas that the researchers were sharing with them. So the researchers had to figure out how to watch the chimps without changing their behavior too much. So Jane had to wait over and over for different kinds of things to work out, for the chimps to be willing to have her around, for the chimps to interact with her. But because she spent her life waiting and watching respectfully, she changed our understanding of the chimps and their environment. She has been a lifelong advocate for environmental causes because she sees how precious their habitat is to them, but also she sees how precious they are to us, because in watching the chimps, we have learned so much more about ourselves, where we as human beings have come from, and the world that we live in now. These are the fruits in Jane Goodall's life of waiting. And here ends the story. I have the pleasure of welcoming all of you to worship this morning or this afternoon or tomorrow evening, whenever you are watching this broadcast. And we want you to know that as Unitarian Universalists, our spiritual paths vary. In this congregation, we have made a covenant together. We affirm our interdependence, celebrate our differences, and work for justice. We are a welcoming congregation, and we deepen our relationships as we serve our congregation's mission to create community, nurture spiritual growth, and act on our values in the broader world, guided by reason and compassion. I'd like to extend a special welcome to visitors worshiping with us this morning. If you are seeking a spiritual home, we hope that you may find it with us. All are welcome at our services, and people become members of this congregation by signing the membership book and supporting the church with their time and finances. If you are considering joining the church or just want to know more about us, please email me. I am your assistant minister for congregational engagement, and I would love to hear from you. You can find my email address in the staff directory under Contact Us on our website. Following this service, we hope everyone will enjoy at least one of the online opportunities for fellowship listed in our online worship portal. There are many announcements posted on our website and on the slides at the end of this service, which I hope you will read. You may know that we share every Sunday's collection with an organization whose work outside our walls aligns with our values. For the month of July, our Share the Plate partner is an organization with whom our congregation has a long history, Safe Haven Family Shelter. You can find more about their work in our online worship portal. At the moment, we don't have the pleasure of passing physical offering bowls to each other, but our finance folks have made sure that anyone, anytime can access online donation forms at firstuunash.org. If you prefer to mail a check to the church, please write in the memo line how you would like your donation to be used. If you want your gift to be credited to your pledge, please write pledge. If you write Sunday offering, it will be donated to our Share the Plate partner. In this season of virtual offering bowls, we are especially grateful for the steady generosity which allows us, both within and beyond the congregation, to continue creating community, nurturing spiritual growth, and acting on our values. We are also deeply grateful for your presence with us, and I invite you now to join in our weekly ritual of gathered community. Following the upcoming musical interlude, we will share the joys and concerns submitted through the online form, provided permission is given on that form. All joys and concerns will be shared as usual with our lay ministry team. So I encourage you now to take a moment to breathe deeply, to settle into whatever space you're occupying right now. Know that you make that space sacred and holy just by being there. And know also that you are connected with a wide community, with all of us who join in this worship service. And as you settle, as you think of the community to which you are connected, you may be aware of profound joys or sorrows that you bring with you to this moment. You are invited to use that joys and concerns form to submit those, and I will share them if you wish. You're also invited, of course, to hold those in your heart. But for now, for a few minutes, let us listen. We have a joy submitted through the form from Jonah Eller Isaacs. He writes, celebrating my birthday this morning as much as we can celebrate anything in such isolating and difficult times. Still, happy to have made it to 40 wonderful. Jonah, we would love to celebrate that with you. Thank you for sharing that. And happy birthday. And I see in the chat box a note, which I think is intended for joys and concerns, from Deborah Wilbrink. This would be a concern for those who appear to be our enemies. I'm concerned for the spiritual evolution of both sides. Thank you, Deborah. I know, I am sure, I'm sure of very little these days, but I am sure that there are more joys, more hopes, more concerns that lie as yet unspoken in our hearts. Holding all of these, the spoken and the unspoken, together in the spirit of prayer, let us join our hearts. Spirit of life and love, we gather this morning aware of so much in our world, so much in the last several months and years that has not been as we might have wished. So much that for centuries has not been as we know it should be. We gather not knowing how next week or next month, the coming school year, the decade in front of us, not knowing how any of this will unfold, and committed to working to its unfolding in the direction of more peace and love and joy and celebrations. And we are grateful for the things we can celebrate together now, things like birthdays, things like the knowledge that people who appear to be on opposite sides are in fact connected in this web of life of which we are all a part. So we gather in discouragement, in frustration, but also in hope and in joy. All of this is our life, and for all of it, we are grateful. Blessed be, and amen.
An in-between meditation by Kate Walker. In between, liminal, that space where we wait between moments, events, results, action, no action. To stand on the threshold, waiting for something to end and something new to arrive. A pause in the rumble of time. Awareness claims us, alert, a shadow of something different. In between invitation and acceptance. In between symptom and diagnosis. In between send and receipt of inquiry and question. In between love given and love received. Liminality, a letting go, entering into confusion, ambiguity, and disorientation. A ritual begun. Pause. Look back at what was. Look forward into what becomes. Identity sheds a layer, reaches into something uncomfortable to wear. In between lighting of the match and the kindling of the oil. In between choosing of text and the reading of words. In between voices and notes carried through the air into the ears to hear. In between creation thrusts ever forward. Social hierarchies may disassemble and structures may fall. Communities may revolt or tempt trust. Tradition may falter or creativity crashes forward. Leaders may step down or take charge. The people may choose or refuse. In between, storm predicted, the horizon beacons. In between, theology of process reminds us to step back. In between, where minutiae and galaxies intermingle with microbes and mysteries. In between, liminal, that space where we wait. Look, listen, feel, breathe. Let us now breathe together for a couple of breaths before we move into our meditation song. March seems to have been so long ago, like in the realm of once upon a time in a faraway land. So much has happened globally, nationally, locally, within our state, city, communities, even our own homes. So many changes in such a short period of time. Although long, long ago, March was actually only 4 months ago. I turned 50 at the end of April. That day wasn't really how I envisioned my 50th birthday to be. Yet in some ways, it seems fitting to have occurred in the middle of a pandemic. This milestone, like the pandemic, has felt disorienting. How is it that I am 50 years old when I was just 30? And no matter how many times I figure it, the math comes out the same. 20 years have passed since I was 30. Does not seem possible. 5 decades. When I was a child, I was spellbound by the statement, well, that was a decade ago, or, yes, I've been doing this for more than a decade now. How cool would it be to talk about something that happened 10 whole years ago? As a child, I eagerly looked forward to the time when I could say, yes, I went there more than a decade ago. It doesn't seem quite so cool now when I can say that that memory is from more than 4 decades ago. Time is a funny thing. It moves both quickly and slowly at once. Pandemic time seems to be even stranger, moving both at light speed and dragging on endlessly. Our regularly scheduled lives have been upended, for some very dramatically, affecting how we work, shop, play, rest, and interact with others. So much has happened that it's hard to believe that it's only been 4 months. At the same time, these may seem like the longest 4 months of our lives. We cannot, and maybe even do not want to imagine what the next 4 months will bring. As the world tries to respond to this crisis, we've been asked to suspend much of our interactions with others. We've been asked to stay at home as much as possible and wait. Some days I'm clear about what we're waiting for, while other days it seems less clear, more amorphous. I find myself holding my breath. Perhaps we are all collectively holding our breath, waiting for something. Another calamity, a vaccine, a cure, a change. I take a deep breath, and as I sigh it out, I remember that although we may not be together physically, we are waiting together as a family, a community, a state, nation, world. We are waiting together, waiting in this liminal space, this threshold between what was and what will be. In her book, When the Heart Waits, Spiritual Direction for Life's Sacred Questions, Sue Monk Kidd writes that there are 3 phases in the waiting process: separation, transformation, and emergence. Kidd writes about her process through these phases at midlife. For her, that waiting process is beautifully illustrated in the life of a butterfly, wherein a caterpillar separates from their life, enters a cocoon, is transformed inside of that cocoon, and emerges a butterfly. In her book, Kidd describes her inner transformation during this long period of waiting in her life. The waiting process that we have entered in this pandemic is both communal and individual. We can observe the phases of waiting and the impact on our own inner lives, and we can see the impact on our communities and across the globe. The first phase of waiting, separation, is something that we have all become quite familiar with since the beginning of the pandemic. Separation seems like a straightforward phase of the process, to disengage or move apart. Yet that is only a piece of the process. What is required is not only separating, but to stay separate, to wait for a time. As we separate, we also try to cling to what was. During this time, our attachments become clearer to ourselves, and we notice others' attachments. What this separation phase seems to be asking of us is to let go the very activities we believe define us, such as our work, our friends, our communities. We are left in this waiting to ponder who we are without these activities and relationships. I was disheartened when the crisis began and we were asked to stay at home. I had just started seeing clients at the beginning of the year. My business certainly wasn't a strong, established organization, and a global pandemic is really not the best time to start a business. I had to shift how I was doing spiritual direction, let go of my attachment to in-person sessions. Separation provides the space, the ground for transformation to begin. The soil, however, must be nourished for growth to take place. I've heard some describe this time of separation, the stay-at-home orders, as being in prison on lockdown. Now, people who have been incarcerated know that this separation is not anything like prison. Yet I do understand the feelings behind this description. The concept, rather than the reality of prison, may be symbolic of this time of separation for some. Like someone who's been incarcerated, there are restrictions and constraints on our lives which can feel overburdensome. Some of the places we like to spend time are now closed. We've missed graduations, weddings, funerals, births, and so much more. We must stay 6 feet apart from others, much like the requirement in the visiting room of prison. We might live alone, imagining ourselves to be in solitary confinement. Perhaps we live with others who seem to be more like wardens than partners. We might experience others' demands to wear masks, to stay at home, and so forth, like prison officers. Perhaps the space in which we are quarantining is the size of a prison cell. I can relate to some of this feeling like we are in prison. Yet I imagine a different sort of cell to symbolize this time we are in, one in which I have a great deal more agency, a symbol in which I find more solace than I do in the symbol of a prison cell. Around the 3rd century, devout Christian contemplatives separated themselves from the religious and social order of their time. They left their homes and churches to live in the desert, away from institutions. These desert monastics sought out the solitude of the desert to pray, contemplate, listen, and wait. Throughout the centuries, the religious and the non-religious alike seek out retreat centers, spaces in which to spend time and respite, allowing time and space for inner growth, healing, and transformation. I imagine the cells of the monastics in the desert and the cells of retreat centers such as the Cenacle in Chicago or Mercy Center in Burlingame, California, or even Peniel Ridge Retreat Center right here in Ashland City, Tennessee. I've stayed at those and other retreat centers by choice. There are restrictions when staying there, things I can and can't do. These places, the cells, if you will, are small with minimal furnishings. Each of these places are located in the beauty of nature. They provide silence when needed and are conducive to listening deeply to my own true self, listening for the spirit of life and for renewing my connection to the web of life. I choose to go to those types of places because they provide all that I need: a space for separation, nourishment for transformation, and I emerge from my stay refreshed and renewed. Rather than the world being put in prison, I envision the world entering a retreat center where collectively we are waiting and listening. How we view and approach this time of separation and waiting will influence our experience. And likely you've experienced a wide range of feelings, periods of feeling up and periods of feeling down, maybe even several times during any given day. Many of us, like me, like to be on the go, doing, and so waiting can be quite uncomfortable. A colleague recently said to me, "It is hard for people to have their purpose in life right now to be to stay at home and keep others safe." Yes. Waiting, however, is not passive. It is quite active. Separation transformation, and then emergence. We are preparing, each of us individually and collectively, for transformation. In this liminal space, we might look deep within to what was and what has been in our own lives, in others' lives, in the world. This is a time to let go of those things that no longer serve us and to be open to what could be. We can see evidence all around us of the many who are doing this inner work. Energy is building and growing for change. More people are becoming aware of how white privilege operates in the world and around them and in their own lives. The hearts and minds of so many are becoming open to hearing the stories, the experiences of others, and becoming committed to change. We may not have chosen this particular time in our lives to enter separation. You, like me, are likely tired of waiting on so many levels, waiting for the world to reopen, waiting for Black lives to matter, waiting for the end of violence. The energy we put forth will join with others' energy to build and grow the movement, producing transformation. Perhaps transformation is already afoot. We may be moving out of separation and into transformation. Perhaps transformation is upon us. It is too soon to tell how we will emerge, what will have changed for us each individually, how the world will be changed. I personally know of 4 babies who've been born during the pandemic, and I wonder what their lives will look like as we emerge from this period, as they grow up. How will this time of collective waiting shift their lives? How will their lives be different from their parents and grandparents? There is too much at stake to go back to the status quo. What if rather than a prison cell, we created space to not only nourish our own spirit, but to nourish your neighbor, community, city, state, and world? How might we be replenished and renewed in separation, providing nourishment for transformation? From those individual and communal transformations, my hope is that we emerge a more just and equitable society. May it be so.
Thank you so much, Michelle. I'd like to invite you to join me in singing our closing song, number 146, Soon the Day Will Arrive, also titled Wait and See.
Soon the day will arrive when we will be together, and no longer will we live in fear.
words for the Chalice Extinguishing are at the bottom of your order of service. They were written by Elizabeth Sell Jones. Please join me. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
This benediction comes from the Reverend Kimberly Quinn Jones, fitted for this day. We are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are not perfect, but we are perfectly fitted for this day. We are not without fault, but we can be honest to face our past as we chart a new future. We are the ones we've been waiting for. May we be bold and courageous to chart the new future. May we have faith in a future that is not known. We are the ones we've been waiting for.